మన ఫ్రిడ్జ్, మన ఏసీ, మన టీవీ, మన కారు, మన కుక్క. కానీ వాళ్ళ బ్రతుకులు విస్మరించి సమాజాన్ని పునర్నిర్మించడంలో ఈ భారతదేశాన్ని ఎంతో మంది రియల్ హీరోస్ పునర్నిర్మిస్తున్నారు. వాళ్ళ యొక్క కథలు కానీ, వాళ్ళ యొక్క సాధించిన విజయాలు కానీ మామూలు ప్రాంతీయ భాషల్లో వచ్చే పత్రికల్లో పెద్దగా గుర్తింపు రావు. దేశమంతటా ప్రభావితం చేసే కార్యక్రమాలు వారు నిర్వహిస్తున్నప్పుడు కూడా ఇంగ్లీష్ మీడియాలో తప్పిస్తే మరి వర్నాకులర్ మీడియాలో కానీ, ప్రాంతీయ భాషల్లో కానీ వారి గురించి మనకు భవిష్యత్ తరాలకు తెలియజేసే ప్రయత్నాలు కూడా జరగవు. ఈ రోజున we have the proud privilege of having the real heroes of India who transformed thousands of lives from poverty to prosperity, from the poorest of the poor areas. India is a country of disparities. It is full of disparities in all aspects. There are limited advantages groups. There are more number of disadvantaged sections. But the real heroes are there who are transforming the poorest of the poor and disadvantaged groups by sacrificing their dollars of wages. Today we have the presence of that heroes who is our foundation lecture delivery, Sri Deep Joshi garu, and also a silent and sincere hero of Gram Vikas, Joe Bodiyat garu. These are the people, real heroes, whom we have to emulate, whom we have to idolize. These are the people of the real heroes of India. It is the legacy and culture of Pujapatla Vasanthi Foundation to bring these eminent persons to the small teeny town of Kakinada to make them speak to our future generations and the students of Kakinada. I request Dr. P. Chirunjali Kumar garu to preside over today's foundation lecture meeting. I request her to do that. I want to welcome our hero who transformed thousands of lives, who got Asian Nobel Prize, that is Raman Magsaysay Award, Padma Shri Award, more than that, the radiant face, who can change the thoughts of the students, of the bright students, who can change the lives of ordinary people and tribal people and everything. I request, I warmly welcome our beloved hero, Sri Deep Joshi garu, to the dais. I also request Sri V.S. Yashkirao garu, General Manager, who are contributing to the change of Turpu Godavari Jilla, East Godavari District, General Manager Andhra Bank. I warmly welcome Sri V.S. Yashkirao garu to the dais. I request Sri Joe Bodiyat garu is working, changing the poorest of the poor areas of India, that is Orissa. He is the also member of Pujapatla Vasanthi Foundation. He is the friend, philosopher and guide to the Pujapatla Vasanthi Foundation. I request our beloved Joe Bodiyat garu to the dais. I request you, sir. I also request the chairman of the foundation, Dr. K. Kameswara garu, who is since 2 decades giving the opportunity to the students of Kakinada and East Godavari district to bring the eminent persons and give the show them a beautiful and bright future. I request them to come on to the dais.
వాసంతి ఫౌండేషన్ 18వ ఫౌండేషన్ చెందిన కాకినాడలో ఉన్న అనేక కళాశాల నుంచి పీజీ సెంటర్ నుంచి విద్యార్థులు వచ్చి ఉన్నారు. వారికి ఫౌండేషన్ లెక్చర్ల గురించి చెప్పే ముందర ఒక చిన్న మనవి. మేకుమల్లి వాసంతి కాకినాడ ఐడియల్ కళాశాల చదువుకుంది. ఆ తర్వాత మిత్రుడు డీప్ జోషి గారు చైర్మన్గా ఉన్న నిర్మలో చదువుకుంది. దీనికంటే ముఖ్యమైన విషయం మీకు మనవి చేయాల్సింది, మంచి క్వాలిఫికేషన్స్ సంపాదించిన తర్వాత ఏ ఉద్యోగానికి వెళ్ళాలి, ఎంత డబ్బు సంపాదించాలి అన్న అభిప్రాయం కాకుండా గ్రామ వికాసంలో చేరింది. దానికి ముఖ్యమైన కారణం నేను భావించేది ఎన్మార్గనైజ్డ్ వహిస్తున్న అనేక స్వచ్ఛంద సేవా సంస్థలకి ఎగ్జిక్యూటివ్గా ఉన్న జోషి వంటి వారి పెద్దలు ఆమెకు మార్గం చూపించారు. ఈనాడు మనం ఈ సభలో కూర్చోబెట్టి వాసంతి ఫౌండేషన్ గారితో మాట్లాడుకుంటున్నాము. ఈ వాసంతి ఫౌండేషన్ అనగానే మన రాష్ట్రంలో ఉన్న అనేక ప్రథమ స్థాయిలో ఉన్న ఫౌండేషన్కి ఆ స్థాయికి చేరిందని మీకు నేను మనవి చేస్తున్నాను. ఐఎమ్ వెరీ ప్రౌడ్. ఒక మామిడిపూడి వెంకటరంగయ్య ఫౌండేషన్ కానీ, ఒక పిన్నమనేని ఫౌండేషన్ కానీ, చెన్నైలో ఉన్న రాజా ఫౌండేషన్ కానీ, ఇటువంటి ఫౌండేషన్స్ చేస్తున్న పని దానికి మెరుగులు దిద్ది ముఖ్యంగా యువకులకి, విద్యార్థులకి వారి యొక్క అకాడమిక్ లైన్లో వారు అధ్యయనం చేస్తున్న సబ్జెక్ట్స్ విషయంలో మరింత ఇన్పుట్స్ ఇవ్వడమే కాకుండా వారికి భావిలో భవిష్యత్తులో ఏ రకమైన లక్ష్యాన్ని ఏర్పరచుకోవాలి అనేది కూడా ఈ ఫౌండేషన్ విపరీతమైన కృషి చేసి మన దేశంలో ఉన్న అటు ఢిల్లీ మొదలుకొని ఇటు కన్యాకుమారి దాకా, ఇటు బొంబాయి మొదలుకొని మరి ఆనంద్ దాకా ఎంతమంది మేధావులు ఉన్నారో వారందరినీ తీసుకొచ్చి 18 లెక్చర్స్ ఇప్పటికి ఇప్పించింది. ఈ 18 లెక్చర్స్ యొక్క పాఠాలు కూడా మన దగ్గర ఉన్నాయి. వీటి యొక్క ప్యాంఫ్లెట్స్ మీద నిరూపించి మా కేఎస్ కామేశ్వరరావు గారు తయారు చేస్తున్నారు. మీకు నా మొదటి అప్పీల్ ఏంటంటే, మీరు విద్యార్థులు ఏ డిగ్రీలో ఉన్నా, ఏ కళాశాలలో ఉన్నా, భవిష్యత్తుని పాలించేది మీరే అని అందరం తరచు చెప్తూ ఉంటాం. మీరు కూడా ఆ విషయం గ్రహించి ఇటువంటి గ్రంథాలు పోగు చేసుకోండి, పోగు చేసుకుని చూడండి. చూసిన తర్వాత ఇవాళ మనం డిగ్రీలో ఉన్నామా, బీకామ్లో ఉన్నామా, పీజీలో ఉన్నామా, ఎంబీఏలో ఉన్నామా, దానికి తగ్గ మార్గాన్ని ఇందులోంచి వెతుక్కోవడానికి మీరు ప్రయత్నం చేస్తున్నారు. ఈరోజు దేశం మొత్తం మీద ఏ విభాగం మీద అయితే దృష్టి సారించి దేశ నాయకులు అయితేనే, ప్రభుత్వం అయితేనే ఆ విభాగాన్ని అభివృద్ధి చేయడానికి ప్రయత్నం చేస్తుందో అటువంటి రూరల్ డెవలప్మెంట్, గ్రామ వికాసం, దాని మీద ప్రసంగించడానికి పెద్దలు మనకి ముఖ్య అతిథిగా చేసిన మన ఆంధ్ర బ్యాంక్ శాస్త్రిరావు గారు, జోషి గారు, మో గారు వచ్చి ఉన్నారు. ఈనాడు మనకు కావాల్సింది పట్టణాలు, సూపర్ పట్టణాలు, మెగా పట్టణాలు అయిపోతున్నాయి. కానీ విలేజెస్లో మాత్రం విలేజెస్లో ఉన్న జీవన పరిస్థితి అయితేనే, ఆర్థిక పరిస్థితి అయితేనే, రాజకీయ గందరగోళం అయితేనే ఇవేమీ కూడా మెరుగుపడలేదు. ఇటువంటి దాని మీద లోతైన అధ్యయనం చేసి అటు ఆర్థికంగా ఏ రకంగా గ్రామాలు బాగుపడాలి అనేది మన ఆంధ్ర బ్యాంక్ మేనేజర్ గారు చెప్తారు. అసలు రూరల్ డెవలప్మెంట్ అంటే ఏంటి, వికాసాన్ని ఏ విధంగా ముందరకు తీసుకెళ్ళాలి అనే ఫౌండేషన్ లెక్చర్లో జోషి గారు ఇప్పుడు మనకు చెప్తారు. మనం చేసే విద్యార్థులందరూ కూడా ఇదొక ప్రత్యేకమైన గెస్ట్ లెక్చర్ కింద మీరు తీసుకొని వివరాలన్నీ నోట్ చేసుకోవాలని మరి కోరుతున్నాను. ఈ ముఖ్యమైన ప్రసంగానికి జోషి గారిని ఆహ్వానించే ముందర మన ఫౌండేషన్ గురించి 4 మాటలు చెప్పవలసిందిగా డాక్టర్ కేఎస్ కామేశ్వరరావు గారిని కూడా ప్రార్థిస్తున్నాను. కేఎస్ కామేశ్వరరావు.
Good morning to each and everyone who is present in the auditorium. I also convey my best wishes and regards to the elders and to the student community and distinguished dignitaries and dais. It is my great pleasure to welcome you all for today's 18th Foundation lecture. In this connection, I would like to mention that we are very fortunate to have in our midst Sri Deep Joshi, Chairman IRMA. Today is a day of fulfillment in my life and also in the life of my wife, Jyotirmai, because since 2 years we have been trying to invite Deep Joshi to Kakinada. Deep Joshi is so busy that though he wanted to come and visit us and deliver a lecture, he could not come and deliver a lecture because he has been very active as a independent development consultant and also the chairman of the IRMA. Why I was so desirous of inviting him because I identified myself and my family and my daughter Vasanthi with IRMA. IRMA is a institution started way back 3 decades ago by Dr. V. Kurian, the chairman of the person who steered the operation of flight in India. Here, we have to understand one more thing. Kurian, coming from Kerala, settling in Anand, Gujarat, with the help of the people of Gujarat, he created a revolution by enabling thousands and thousands of families to become rich by following the white revolution. He was a transformer in real sense. So this IRMA was created by Willie Kurian, with a motto to provide rural marriages for the development of India. We have been talking of development of India since independence, but there is no single path to development, but there are many paths to development. One path is laid by the government, the other path is laid by the NGOs, and the other path is laid by the people themselves for this development. Here, our speaker of today, Deep Joshi, is a product of Allahabad University and then went to MIT to do MS and also did MBA from Sloan University and then came to India in 1977, worked for some time in Allahabad and then some time in Pune and then started this Pradhan, an NGO in 1982, which buts the 7 states of India, that is the central India. In these 7 states, the last three decades and more, they have transformed the lives of thousands of women and men by educating them, by enabling them to learn their livelihood through their cooperation and help. Now, with these remarks, I want to say one thing. Vasanthi Foundation is a very small foundation with meager resources, but having a commitment and dedication to give back, pay back our gratitude to the students of Kakinada. So this was started in 1998. Since then, we have been striving hard to fulfill our desire of improving the standards of the youth of Kakinada by making them aware of what is happening outside the textbook, outside the classroom in the whole of India. And I thank all the principals and managers of the various MBA colleges and degree colleges in Kakinada for allowing the students to come out here, and also thank the number of NGOs representatives who have come from Reliance Foundation, GMR and other foundations to witness the lecture of Deep Joshi. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now I request the President to present this.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rameswaram. And you are very the foundation lecture will be very useful for the students of the college. It is in the memory of Vasanthi. It is not that the tax you are paying. Actually, we, the management and principals of the colleges and the students, we are very much indebted to you for having provided to us such a knowledgeable speeches every year. Thank you very much. Now it is my pleasure to invite Sri Joe Mandate to just give his memories about Vasanthi. He is a close associate of Vasanthi. I remember him coming over to this foundation lectures many times whenever we conducted here in Kakinada. My hearty welcome to Joe.
Good morning to all of you. It really enthuses me to see so many young people. The energy of the youth which has filled this hall really transforms everyone and transforms me. I remember Vasanthi not as her boss, but as a friend. Though she was with us in Gram Vikas, in Odisha for a very short time, the understanding, the fellowship and the friendship that Vasanthi developed for me and I developed for Vasanthi was huge. I went to Irma to give a placement talk. I had started the talk when this frail little girl with a long neck almost made her way into the group of people who were listening to me. She sat on the back bench and I noticed that she was listening very carefully to me. At the end of the talk, there was a question and answer session. I thought because she was listening so carefully, she would ask some questions, but she did not. When everyone dispersed, she stayed back and held another half an hour of conversation with me, delving deep into the organization that I led, delving deep into the development philosophy that we had, and asking questions about the poor and their position in society in Orissa. She said she would consider applying to Gram Vikas. Well, I took it with quite a spoonful of salt, because when you are in placement lectures, most people say, yeah, tomorrow we are coming to you. But she was an exception. She got in touch immediately and came to Gram Vikas. In Gram Vikas, she had to often work with people who were less qualified than her, who were doing grassroots work in the villages, very remote villages. She had to also travel there, but this is where she was a different person. She could establish a relationship of equality with people who were more qualified than her and those who were very much lower as far as qualifications were concerned than her. After office hours, very often Vasanti and I had long chats where she tried to understand what did I stand for, and I tried to understand what she wanted. For her father was a friend. But to some extent, her mother was a competitor in a very good sense. She would, so many times whenever she had to write something and I had to read it, and I used to show, some anomalies or maybe how it could be improved, she would always say, my mother writes so well in English. One day I want to write as well as her, and if possible, even better than her. That thought ran through all her life in Gram Vikas. She wanted to be good in whatever she did. She did not want to take a second position or a lower position in whatever she did. This crave for excellence, the desire to excel in an area, not for herself alone, but for the sake of the poor people whose concern she had taken on herself. She was very fascinated by the English language. And because I had done English literature in my university, to some extent I could hold my own during discussions about Shakespeare and plays and Dickens, etc. But it was very enjoyable for me to converse with somebody who loved this language. With this understanding, this common love for English, we became very good co-workers. And she told me huge plans for Gram Vikas. I also hope and I prayed that Gram Vikas would have great plans for her. But alas, that life was cut short and we lost her. But we lost her physically. The colleagues who knew her still cherish whatever Vasanti was to them, to the organization. I today stand here with deep appreciation and indebtedness to this frail little lady who came our way, our paths crossed, and we were never the same again. Thank you very much.
Distinguished guests seated on the dais and off the dais, and my dear colleagues, and also college students who are eagerly waiting for hearing this main speech by Sri Deep Joshi coming from Gujarat, Irma, on this 18th anniversary or something like that, 18th lecture of Srimati Kuchipatla Vasanti Foundation. So I am really honored to be here today. I feel very honored because I don't have that much relation about this institution or all these things because of my position in Andhra Bank, and also the association with Ideal College made me to stand before you today. And what I can say is, by hearing this about this institution foundation, this Vasanti Foundation is making its efforts to bring an attitudinal change in the youth of this country, to make them understand their responsibility towards the society at large, and and also to make them self-reliant, and also take up some activities which will be useful not only for them and also for the society at large. Now Srimati Vasanti, after her brilliant studies, she did not go for this job and she has opted for some social responsibility by joining this Gram Vikas, as I was told or as I was hearing from the lectures, and she is instrumental in so many activities related to this rural public at large, to bring a revolutionary change in the rural people. So here also, just like that, our bank in Andhra Pradesh mostly, they are doing their best to bring some revolutionary changes in the lives of the rural people at large, and also the students who are coming forward to set up their activities on their own and do some justice to their activities, and also on the return they can give something to the society by providing some more jobs by setting up of some activities. Here in Turpu Godavari, mostly these food processing units can be taken up. You are all grown-up students, maybe doing this MBA and PG students. So after hearing to the lectures and all these things, see Vasanti also, she did not opt for the job. She has rather devoted her life for the rural development of the rural masses by joining this Gram Vikas and do some little bit whatever she can do in the upliftment of the rural society. In that way also, you can also think of, wherever possibility is there, you can also think of setting up of some institutions on your own and be happy with the way in which you will be leading your life, and also you can be providing some more employment to the others in the rural areas. In that way, to bring that attitudinal change, this foundation is making the students to enrich their knowledge by inviting some professors or eminent people every year and taking up these activities by providing these lectures which will benefit you in the future course. Not only these lectures, I was told that this institution, this foundation is carrying on other activities like conducting some seminars, electrocutions in the colleges, students, and also some other related social responsibility activities for which we should be grateful to the foundation, and I pray God that the founders should be given all the health and wealth and all the courage to continue the foundation with some more good activities to bring up social upliftment and do some better service to the society. Thank you all. I don't have anything to tell much more because I am not well versed with all these foundations and all these things. What best I can tell you is, after your studies are over, if at all if you people want to be self-reliant and come up with some good activities which will be beneficial not only for you and to the society at large, the banks are there to provide you the financial assistance required and they will be with you. That much I can assure you from Andhra Bank also for the prospective entrepreneurs at large. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Of the foundation lecture from Sri Dr. Deep Joshi. Before I invite him, let me just tell you what you are going to hear from is a person who has a very awe-inspiring profile. Dr. Joshi comes from Massachusetts. He studied in Massachusetts Institution of Technology and then came over to India. As our law was telling us, he is so qualified that he could occupy any high position in India. But instead, he started establishing NGOs, non-government organizations. A great organization in 1983 he founded is Pradhan. He is going to tell us about Pradhan, therefore I need not describe it to you. Now in addition to this, he has received #1 NGO, but such first award that India has given to him. He is now the chairman of IRMA. Again, before I invite him, I would like to just read out one quotation about what he thinks of development and youth. Civil society needs to have both head and heart. Civil society needs to have both head and heart. If all you have is bleeding hearts, it is not mere sleeping hearts, it is not mere simply biologically working hearts, but they are bleeding hearts. If you have any bleeding hearts, it would not work. If you have only heads that you are going to dictate solutions which do not touch the human core, you should have both head and heart. This is one of the famous quotations that are oft given to him. Now I request him to please deliver the foundation lecture, Assembly Foundation lecture number 18, Dr. Joshi.
Did you hear me? Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you, President. And I am grateful to Mr. Raji, to Mrs. Amrita, and to the Vasanti Foundation for inviting me here. As Mr. Raji saying, I resisted coming here to give a talk. Not because I am very busy, which I am, but you can always find a bit of time. The real reason is that I am not a paper writer. I don't write. I'm not a researcher. I have been a practitioner all my life. So I can't write fantastic treaties that I can talk about. And even though I dress in a kurta pajama, I am not a politician. So I can't make speeches. Which is why I was resisting to come and deliver a lecture here. I keep doing that. I keep getting invitations. You know, once you get these fancy awards, I don't know, that's a kind of, what should I say? That's the risk you run. If somebody, felicitates you or gives you an award, then people think that you are great. Until yesterday you were an ordinary person, but somebody gave you this award or that award, and suddenly people think that, oh my goodness, this fellow must have a lot of wisdom. He must be a great person or she must be a great person. And then everybody wants you to come and give a talk and do this and do that and do that. There was no difference in Deep Joshi before he was given the Magsaysay Award and after it. There was no difference at all, same person. But you get, so whenever I get these invitations, I keep writing emails saying that, I am on a deathbed or I am traveling for the next 50 months or so on and so forth. So that's what I tried to do with Kamaraswati also, but he was persistent. Plus, I guess what finally brought me here is that my whole life has been dedicated, my working life, I must say, has been dedicated to try and get more and more Vasantis, young men and women who have had an education, who have the whole world before them, who can do anything they like in their life, get any job, any career, yet go and choose to work with those who don't have any choices, poor people, rural people in our country. So that's been the motto of Pradhan. Try to get educated people to come and work in villages. Joe, old friend of mine, used to say, these guys are people running about doing absolutely nothing. But then, if you have bright young people and people who have a big heart, who are empathetic, who are imbued with the idea of fraternity, that we are all part of the same. We all came from the same source. We are all human beings. And therefore, I owe it not just to my family, my wife, my children, my parents, but also to others who are all human beings. So, to get people like that to work in villages, that's been the motto of Pradhan. So in Vasanti, I see a Pradhan person, a Pradhanite. If she hadn't gone to Gram Vikas, she probably would have come to Pradhan or some other organization like Pradhan or Gram Vikas, which is working to bring change in our villages. And that's the topic I'm going to be talking about. I'm a little bit worried given the audience. I didn't know what the audience would be. So if I knew that there would be so many young students, maybe I would have talked about something else. But since I haven't structured my talk, it's difficult now to kind of just say anything I like. So I'm going to stick to what I've written about. And I hope towards the end, at the end of the lecture, I hope the young people sitting at the back would ask questions, would challenge, would ask questions about, why I think what I think, and how they could participate in doing some development work. I'm going to be talking about human resources for village work. I'm talking about having more people like Vasanti to go and work in villages. Why that has not happened? And what can we do now to make that happen? That's the topic of my talk today, my conversation with you today. I have always thought, and that was the inspiration why Pradhan was set up. The idea of setting up Pradhan to me came from an experience I had in Maharashtra many years ago. I had gone to visit an NGO, a rural development organization, set up by a doctor couple, Dr. Raj Arole and his dear wife Mabel Arole. Both of them have passed away now. And I go there to do it. I'm an MBA, an engineer MBA, so called. And MBAs are supposed to do evaluations and assessments and so on and so forth, and they're supposed to design new organizations. So I've gone to Jamkhed, a taluka in Ahmednagar district, to look at the work of this NGO and to guide them how they could expand their work, how they could build a bigger organization to reach many more places. When I go there, I find this portly, bubbly woman, Mabel Arole. She had an MD from Johns Hopkins University in the US. Both she and her husband both were educated at law and then Johns Hopkins. And they were working in rural Maharashtra. Ahmednagar is one of the drought-prone districts of the country, like Anandpur here. Very poor. And they were working among these rural people, and as a result of about 6 or 7 years of their work, the rural health situation in that area, in that taluka, had undergone dramatic change. The health indices, we look at malnutrition, maternal mortality, infant mortality, whichever parameter you looked at, they were way ahead of the national average. In fact, in 1977, Jamkhed Taluka had public health parameters which are as good as, which were at that time, as good as the national average today. So I was quite impressed by that. And I tried to understand why had this happened. And I got the answer. The answer basically was that here was this doctor couple, highly qualified doctors. And they were sitting on the floor Mabel was sitting on the floor with a group of village women, Maharashtrian women in villages in those days at least. I don't know how the situation is now. They wear their saris, with a thing tucked at the back. So these village women sitting around Mabel, they were her health workers. And she was treating them as if she were, they were all interns in a medical college, like friends, arguing with them intensively and discussing why is this, why is that, how can we do this, how can we do that. Effectively, she was treating them as equals. So highly qualified doctor, building that bond of relationship, human relationship with these women. That's the chord inside me. Something dropped in my head. That this is how you bring change. If you want to change village India, if you want to reduce poverty in India, if you want to reduce backwardness in India, you need educated people, people who have ideas, who have analytical capabilities, who can generate new solutions. but who also have that big heart, who, our education seems to alienate us. Once I get a degree, I become superior to the mortals who don't have a degree. Gaonwala has no degree. The villager has no degree. He has a lot of wisdom, but he has no degree. So, I thought that we needed to get people, educated people like Vasanti, who have high education, but who have the humility and the personal conviction and courage to treat other human beings, however poor, however dirty, however backward, however illiterate they might be, as equals. Only when you approach somebody as an equal do your ideas make any sense. When you talk from above, people may listen to you out of fear, out of the possibility that you might give them something, but they don't really engage with you. You alienate them. So that was the idea of program, and that is what, in a way, inspired me to eventually find some time and come here, and I'm delighted to be here. Now, I have always thought that, human beings, what I use the word good human beings within quotes, wise people, educated people, are engines of change. They are the drivers of socio-economic change. And I'm sure you would agree with me that village India has consistently been underinvested with such people. It is in some ways a sad irony that India, which was mostly rural when we became free, chose not to invest in the village, not to think of making village as this building block of New India. 2/3 of a century later, 67 years later, I think the situation remains more or less the same. We are still not investing in village India. We are throwing money at it, but we are not sending people there. In fact, if anything, as there has been more urbanization, the more entrepreneurial people from the villages have moved to cities. As public services have deteriorated, as we have created a huge top-down system of governance in this country, the endowment of human capital in villages has actually been declining. So the situation, I think, in terms of human endowment in villages, human capital in villages today, is worse than what it was in 1947. So that's what I'm going to be talking about as to why that has happened and what can we do today to change that situation. We today, and especially for the young people, we would think that this national development that we talk about, it's always been there since Baba Hanka time, since the time of creation and whatever. That's not the case. National development as a systematic set of policies and actions, with governments taking a lead or playing an important role, is a post-World War II phenomenon. Except in case of the Soviet Union, where systematic development with government playing an important role began soon after their revolution, 1990. So while there have been differences in approaches in different parts of the world, all countries in the world that have taken up systematic steps towards bringing about change in their societies, it's began really after the World War. And for most, I would say all of the countries, Tanzania for a short while used to be an exception. But all countries in the world, including, mind you, the former Soviet Union, the Soviet Union now, for them, modernization has meant industrialization. And with industrialization comes urbanization. Basically, the introduction of machine technology, which is what came as a result of the Industrial Revolution. And India has not been an exception. India also has basically followed the approach of meaning of modernization has essentially been induction of new technologies, urbanization, industrialization, and so on. If you look at history, in the years before India became independent, especially during the 2 years when it was more or less certain that India will become independent, about 1945, it was more or less a foregone conclusion. There have been passionate debates, a lot of differences, disagreements about how should India develop. Gandhiji, as many of you know, I'm not sure how much the younger generation knows about Gandhiji. He very strongly and steadfastly said that India should develop from the villages. He wanted the Indian village to become a self-governing, self-reliant, and could have collaborative community. He had this idea of creating a nation which started with the village community and expanded outward into what is known as concentric circles. So there is one village, and there are 5 villages, and there are 50 villages, all connected to each other. An oceanic circle rather than a pyramid. That was Gandhiji's idea of development. Now, a lot of people think Gandhiji was romantic about villages. He had false notions about villages and so on and so forth. That's not true. He was quite aware of what the condition of our villages was, and in fact, in one of the articles, he was a very prolific writer. He used to write regularly. And in one of the articles, he had called the village as the muck heaps or dung heaps. He was basically referring to the lack of hygiene and sanitation in villages. So he knew that the village was, in terms of its external appearances, filthy, backward, full of superstition, illiteracy, all kinds of stuff. So he didn't have a romantic idea about how great our villages were. He knew how our villages were. And precisely for that reason, he wanted those villages to be changed. He had great faith in the wisdom of the villages. In one of the articles in the journal that he used to produce, originally, he once wrote, "Take away the encrustation, remove his chronic poverty and his illiteracy, and you will find the finest specimen of what a cultured, cultivated, free citizen should be." So you have that faith in the gaonwala, in the rural person. He had actually written the Hind Swaraj book that he wrote, the booklet. I would advise the young people especially to read that. Very interesting. Wrote a booklet in 1909 called Hind Swaraj, where he, in detail, wrote about how village should be the basis of development for everyone. But for many of his colleagues and comrades in the independence movement, and most other people, I would dare to say even today, for most people, most educated people, most urban people, and I sometimes joke with them, if occasionally, as I said, I get invited and sometimes I just can't resist, so I go and talk. If I talk with young college students, I was once talking with young graduates from the Tata Administrative Service. This is an elite management service in India. Very few people, they go for a 2-year rigorous training. So they invited me to give a talk to these youngsters. About 25-year-olds, boys and girls. So I asked them, how many of you are married? And none of them was married. So I said, well, how many of you are planning to marry? And they all said, yeah, we all get married. So then I threw this atom bomb at them. I said, how many of you are planning to have a honeymoon in a village? For a moment, we all became totally silent. What is he talking about? And then almost the roof blew off. They laughed so loudly. So it wasn't just Gandhiji's comrades and colleagues and educated people at that time who thought of village as a backward place. Even today, the educated people, the urban educated people, continue to think of the village as a backward place. And there is an expectation. Our planners had it, and I guess most of us who aspire India to become a great superpower and developed country, it is our hope and our expectation that someday this feature called the village will wither away, disappear. Everything will become city, city, city. Now Nehruji thought the same way. Nehru was the stalwart at that time. Nehruji, Ambedkar Sahib, these were the stalwarts besides Gandhi. Patel of course had somewhat different views. There is this famous exchange between Gandhiji and Nehruji, 1945, October 1945. Gandhiji wrote to Nehru saying that, you are going to my heir, you are going to become my political heir, you are going to take over from me. And therefore it is important for me to understand what your view, what your sort of roadmap, that's the word we are using these days, what is the roadmap for the development of India? And he also told Nehruji in his letter that he said, I had written about this future of India in that booklet I wrote called Hindu Swaraj. So I would like you to follow that. Nehruji wrote back saying that, the Hindu Swaraj was written in 1909, we are now in 1945. I myself read it in 1920, and when I read it, I thought it was not practicable, I didn't agree with it. And then he wrote a couple of sentences which I will quote. This is Nehruji writing to Gandhiji. The village, normally speaking, is backward intellectually and culturally. And no progress can be made from a backward environment. Narrow-minded people are much more likely to be untruthful and violent. So this is, a stalwart colleague of Gandhiji thought that village was not the place. Dr. Ambedkar, the person who gave us our constitution, had similar views. He felt that the caste system is kept intact by the village. So village will remain a roadblock for India's development. That was, at least for the emancipation of the adults, that was kind of his view. And in a debate in 1937, before independence, there was this self-rule, home rule. State assemblies were created. In 1937, he was a member of the Bombay Assembly. In 1937, during a discussion on Panchayat Raj. And again, during the discussions while the constitution was being made, he expressed similar sentiments. I just quote I present you a quote from him. He says, "The village is a sink of localism. The village is a sink of localism, a den of ignorance, narrow-mindedness, and communalism." So, at the time of independence, while Gandhiji wanted the village to be the starting point for our development, his stalwart colleagues actually thought that was not how it should be. Unfortunately, Gandhiji was assassinated before the dust on partition could be settled, a new constitution could be framed and implemented, and India could begin a process of systematic development. And in his absence, neither the village nor the village panchayat received the attention in our developmental efforts that Gandhiji wanted they should be given. Now, to be historically correct, to be fair, we did start a village development program called the Community Development Program, or CDP, in 1950. There were some 58 pilot projects across the country, and the program was spread across the country through what is known as the Block Development Office, or simply as the block. The idea for that came from people like Dr. S.K. Day, who had worked in a refugee camp in Haryana at a place called Nilokedi. There was an experiment going on with funding from the Ford Foundation at a place called Itawa in UP. There was some work that had been done by a gentleman named James Yen, YCJ Tim Yen, in what is now the People's Republic of China, the mainland China, and many others, Sri Ketan, and so on and so forth. So by drawing on these different ideas, the community development program was started. But the focus of community development was not really about development of the village, because there was not enough money, there was not enough human beings, there were not enough basantas available at that time. The CDP basically focused itself on agriculture extension, trials of new seeds, a little bit of adult education, things like that. Even though, if you read the first 5-year plan, 1952, it describes the CDP, the Community Development Program, as a process of transformation of the social and economic life of the village. Nothing of that nature was actually done. Nobody knew what transformation of the village would be all about. And the investment in CDP, Community Development Program, the first 5-year plan, was about 6 rupees per capita over a 5-year period. And a video and 5 radios and about some 10-15 extension workers, village level workers. That's all the block had. And more importantly, the community development program was not really taken with any idea of changing the village. It was what writers call, in later writers have described as a holding operation. In 1949, China had become communist. And there was this concern among our leaders and also other leaders in the world that given the dire poverty that existed in India, India would be the next. Nehruji actually talked about it. Nehruji in a speech in 1937 and in 1958 again said the same. He said that, listen, people's aspirations have been raised because of the independence movement. And if we don't do something right away, people will be guided by more violent change. So in order to do something, so the CDP, the Community Development Program, essentially was kind of a, what you call it, a malam, that you're not really curing the basic problems, but you are providing some temporary relief. So that's what it ended up doing. And of course, over a period of time, the Community Development Program itself came into disrepute and disregard, and the whole area around community development was gradually taken up. When it started, there used to be a central committee in Delhi. Each state used to have a committee in the state capital. There used to be a committee in the district to monitor what's going on, guide them, and what. All of that was taken up. In 1957, there was a review of the Community Development Program. There was a committee set up, Alvatra Mentor Committee. And that committee, after studying the functioning of the Community Development Program, came to the conclusion that, this block, this officer-centered organization called the block, was not able to get people's cooperation. What we talk about as people's participation today. In those days, it used to be called people's cooperation. So, the reason why Community Development Program is not functioning well is because there is lack of people's cooperation, and therefore we should start Panchayat Raj. So, the ideas that Gandhi had in 1947 or long before 1947, finally, even though Panchayat is not part of our, at that time, it was not part of the main body of the Constitution. It was in the directive principles of state policy. And the government doesn't have any obligation to implement the directive principles. It has to implement all the acts. Right to freedom, right to speech, so on and so on. But Panchayat was not in that. So, but anyway, in 1959, Panchayats were formed. Nehruji himself inaugurated a Panchayat in Rajasthan at a place called Nagaur. With a lot of fanfare. But within a decade, the Panchayats in most parts of the country withered for several reasons. One of them, of course, is that there was no guarantee that Panchayat elections will be held. Whereas, as you know, there has to be an elected assembly every 5 years. You can have a president rule for just 6 months, but after that you have to have an assembly. It's illegal not to have an assembly. It's against the constitution not to have an elected assembly. We have to have an elected parliament. But in those days, it was not necessary to have an elected panchayat. Today it is, after the 73rd Amendment. Elections of the panchayat have to be held. Otherwise, the state government will be violating the constitution, which is very serious. So, because there was no guarantee to hold elections, because the state governments, bureaucrats as well as politicians, did not want to hand over power to the panchayats, and in my view, more importantly, because there was no nurturing support needed given to the Gram Panchayats. After all, these were, as Nehru himself described, or also Gandhi described, there was illiteracy, there was, people were steeped in tradition. And during the colonial rule in the 17th century, when the British became the diwans of the Mughals, panchayats were robbed of their power. And until that time, panchayats had, used to keep land records, they used to dispense justice and so on and so forth. But all of that was taken by the bureaucracy, by posting the, I don't know what the term here is, but in our area it's called the patwari, the chap who keeps your land records, and the tanedar. So the panchayats, anyway for 200 years before 1959, had been very dominant. They talked about norms and what have you, but as far as governance is concerned, they had no role until that time. And they had no idea what development would be all about. So in 1959, suddenly you create panchayats, but don't give them the ideas, the knowledge, the training, and the nurturing support, hand-holding support. They are not suddenly, going to start running and doing development and bringing justice and fairness and equality and so on. So, panchayat, which would have been the second coming of the village, also withered away by mid-60s. Now, recently, of course, we've had this 73rd Amendment, and the 73rd Amendment guarantees that there shall be an elected panchayat. But in spite of that, again, panchayats are not doing what they are supposed to be doing for several reasons, except in case of Kerala. Kerala, the panchayats are very, very dynamic, very, very active. One of the reasons is the same, that even though 73rd Amendment has been brought in, we are not providing the nurturing support to panchayats. Secondly, even though the 73rd Amendment says that a lot of activities and resources will be transferred to the panchayats, we've not done that. State governments have not transferred, except in Kerala, where 60% of budget goes through the panchayat. Thirdly, the structure of panchayats is such that it doesn't allow people to participate. The power has been given to what is known as the panchayat, which is a group of elected people, 10, 11, 12, depending on the size. The Aam Janata has no power. So, elections, elected representatives, tribes for elections, that is what has overtaken the panchayat. Also, the design of the panchayat, the definition of the village in the panchayat law is all topsy-turvy. For you and for me, the village is what we call, we often use the word native village. It may be actually hamlet of what is listed as a post office, as a village in the revenue records. Because people relate to each other in a hamlet. They attend each other's weddings, functions, funerals and so on and so forth. There is that affinity. Now in Kerala that has been done. Kerala, what is known as the Kudumbam, which is kind of like an extended family, has the planning and everything is done there. It originates from there and it goes up and up and up. Whereas in the rest of the country, the Grama Sabha may have 5,000 people. If you have an assembly of 5,000 people, nothing sensible can be done. So even though the 73rd Amendment has been made, the possibility for panchayats to take developmental work has again not been realized. So, to summarize, unlike what Gandhiji wanted, we as a nation have not done for the village what needs to be done. And let me come to how we have dealt with human resources. As I was saying in the beginning, human resources, human capital is the driver of all change in any society. Any society. India has done very well in developing human resources. When we became independent in 1947, we had some 4 or 5 engineering colleges. There was Roorkee, there was Gindi, there was a place near Calcutta, Shivpur, there was a Pune engineering college, but 5 engineering colleges. We had 2 agriculture colleges. There was no management school in 1947. We had some top-class universities, many of them, Allahabad, Bombay, Patna, Kolkata, Madras, big universities. But the focus of universities used to be more on natural sciences, humanities, liberal arts, and so on and so on. By the mid-1960s, India had those well-known IITs, 5 of them, dozens of engineering colleges, dozens of agricultural universities, big research centers, and a few years later, by 1969, India also had the institutes of management. And today we have hundreds of engineering and management schools producing people for the urban industrial sector. So while we have done a great deal in developing human resources, and that has led to a great deal of economic development in this country, if you look closely, the human resources needed to work in villages, the institutes that train people like Joe Badiat or Deep Joshi or Vasanti, the number of such institutions is very small. In fact, I can't think of any institute like IRMA. IRMA is a pioneer, set up in 1979, which educates people to work in rural areas, with rural communities, cooperatives and panchayats and so on and so on. So even though India has done very well in building human capital, and that's one of our great strengths, we have not invested in creating a pool of human resources who are suited to and trained for working in the rural areas. Now, why is this happening? Of course, one of the reasons, very simply, as I said in the beginning, is that we have had an urban industrial bias in our development. Modernization has meant industry and cities. It has not meant a clean village, a village where everybody has drinking water, except in Joe's place, a village where everybody has a toilet, a village where there is a good, strong, functioning school, a village where there is somebody who can help in case of a childbirth, who can guide a pregnant woman, who can guide a lactating mother. So in other words, we do not have villages, and that's not been our focus, to create villages which will have the same amenity, same lifestyle, the same quality of life that you and I have living in cities. So that is one reason why we did not invest in creating human resources to go and work. What will I do there? The second reason is that we have always thought that rural work is an inferior work. SSG बनाने में क्या लगता है? What is so difficult about forming an SSG? What is so difficult about doing agriculture? farmers do agriculture. So why do you need trained people, educated people, bright, brilliant people to go and do farming? It can be done by farmers who are illiterate. Just like we have been in case of education, we think that primary education can be done by somebody who is a matriculated. I think nowadays because of unemployment, we have MAs, BAs also being school teachers. But view has always been that, to teach MA students or to guide PhD students, you need brilliant teachers. People very polite, very capable. But teaching with school kids, chota kaam. So this Brahminical thinking that we have, in that rural development is an inferior, small, intellectually inferior, not materially inferior, but intellectually small. So A, we didn't think that village is going to be the main source of development. B, we anyway think that rural work is small. C, we thought that village is anyway going to disappear. So that is the reason why we've really not invested in village. And I think there is one more very important reason, that nobody really had a conception of what kind of skills and knowledge you need to transform a village. Which is very different from building a road in the village. So if you want to train people to build bridges, you know what skills and knowledge they should have. They should know mechanics, they should know structures, they should know materials, and blah blah blah. But if somebody has to go and work in a village, to create a village of the kind that Gandhiji wanted, what skills, what knowledge, what attitude should this person have? We have no knowledge of that. There was no experience. Gandhiji used to talk about it. He very often talked about, villages and villages and villages, always talked about it. But his life was spent in political work, guiding the independence movement. So he never was able to translate his ideas, his dreams about the village into practice. So, because there was no experience, because we didn't think village work was so complex, because we didn't think that village is going to be the building block of India, and because we thought that village is eventually going to disappear, we never really worried about creating human resources for village. In the old days, in the heyday of planning commission, there used to be one very senior economist, highly regarded. He was in charge of the human resource planning in the planning commission. So every time a plan was made, you would say, okay, how many engineers are going to need, how many chemists will we need, and so on and so forth. In all of that, how many village developers, village transformers we will need, that calculus never entered. Because that wasn't the goal. So that's the reason why, over a period of time, we really, even though we've done a great deal of work in building our human resources, human capital, and that has paid great dividends. We haven't really been able to create human capital, create institutes that will train people like Vasanti to go out and work in it. Now, where are we today and where do we go? We can all see India has obviously made great progress. We are the fourth largest economy in terms of our purchasing power. We are the 10th largest economy in the world in terms of our nominal value of our GDP. But the wretched village doesn't go away. It doesn't disappear. At the time of independence, well, 1951 census, India had approximately 83% rural people. And in 2011 census, that percentage has come down, a little less than 69%. But if you look at the absolute numbers, the population of rural people today is almost 3 times what it was in 1951. In 1951, we had some little less than 30 crore people who were classified as rural. Today we have more than 83 crore people who are classified as rural. If you look at what is the composition of states, you will find that 2/3 of Indians, all Indians, rural or urban, live in those states that are more than 2/3 rural. This is like UP, Andhra, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh. So, 2/3 of Indian population, even today, is in those states which are more than 2/3 rural. So the village is not disappearing. Whether we like it or not, the village is not going to disappear. Certainly not in my lifetime, which is very short now, quite old. So maybe we'll live another 10-15 years. But for at least, I think, even for 2 generations, I don't see the village becoming an insignificant tail of India. So that's one reason why we need to focus on the village concept. Another reason is that India's underbelly, weak part of India, is the village. In terms of many parameters today, education, health, mortality, nutrition, whatever. Village pulls us down. There is no reason for that to happen, but that's the reality. So we need to go back to the village and do something. Change it. Thirdly, I think whether one likes it or not, the problems of ecological sustainability of India, issues of water, there is going to be water scarcity in India. Our natural resources are in a bad shape. Our rivers are in bad shape. So if you want to change the quality of our environment, if you want India to become ecologically sustainable, viable, the change has to come from the villages. Yeah, the city can say, okay, we'll not use plastic, we'll do this, we'll do that. But most of the land lies in the village. Most of the rain falls in the village. So if you want to manage our natural resources in ways that will make this country viable, you've got to go into other things. Finally, well, I have a few more points on that. One more reason why we need to worry about the village is the disparities today are far bigger than they were in 1947 or 49 when China became communist. The disparities in India are huge, and the village is at the bottom of the pyramid. And unlike in 1949 or 50 or even 20 years, 50 years ago, the inhibitions that existed because of the feudal control, because of traditions, are going away. So the young fellow in the village today doesn't feel that he's bound by any tradition or anything. if he feels angry, he is likely to come onto the road. His grandfather would not have done that. So, because of the news disparities, because of, in the olden days, there were no cars, there were no TVs, there were no mobiles, there was no electricity. So the rich man in the village, maybe he drank more milk or had more ladoos, ate better rice, maybe he had more clothes. But the poor man also ate something. So the disparities between the rich and the poor were not so great. Today there are people who can build huge houses which are hundreds of crores worth. And then you have people who don't have a hut. So the disparities in India today are far, far greater than what they were at the time of independence. And therefore, the danger of disorder that Nehruji talked about in 1937 and in 1958 are far greater today. And finally, I think today, thanks to the work that people like Joe have done, people like Pradhan have done, people in other NGOs have done, and also people like the great Verghese Kurian have done, who was a public party driver. We do have some ideas about how the village can be transformed. We do have some ideas about what skills, knowledge, attitudes are needed. We know how to train a Vasanti who can go and work in the village, which we didn't know in 1957 or 47. So, for all these reasons, I think India, again, this is the right time. This is actually, the time is running away for us to invest in human resources. We need many more firmas. We need many more educational institutions that educate youngsters to go and work in the world. We need to capture the knowledge that Gram Vikas has or Pradhan has. Because these guys, they're not good at writing. So we need to create educational initiatives that will learn from the practice, that will figure out how you form a group of people, how do you organize women, how do you form a cooperative, how do you link them to the market. There is knowledge we didn't have that in 1957 or 47. So for all these reasons, I think we need to go back to as the urban economy grows, an opportunity is coming. You can create a lot of wealth in villages, just as Dr. Kurian did, by providing access to rural people to urban markets. So it's possible to create those opportunities. How can we do that? What is inhibiting today? Why is it that we don't have? Why is it that so many young people, very few of them would go and want to get the education that wasn't being got? There are two big reasons. One of them is that there are not enough high quality educational institutions that educate the way Vasanti was educated. There's only one example. There is a small program being done by the American University in Delhi. I'm also involved with that. It's a 2-year master's program in what we call development practice. Not development studies, development practice. The students are required to go and spend, it's a 2-year program, out of that for 10 months, they spend in villages, in 3 installments, where they actually work in villages, learn about how to change the government. So other than these two, there are really not any development program in Bhubaneswar, except MBA program. So one basic reason is that we don't have enough educational facilities that will provide education to the emerging vicinity of today. We need thousands of them, but the total supply, even if every IMA student wanted to go and join the Grammar, the numbers are very small. 160 from IMA, next year 200, 25 from AUU, and some 40-50 from Bhubaneswar. So one of the things that we need to do is to have more educational facilities that educate people to go and work in villages as professionals, not as some extension workers, as change makers. That's one thing we need. For that, we need to build a body of knowledge. The knowledge is there, what is known as tacit knowledge. It's lying around in the ground process and the pradhans and the AKRSP and the Seva. There are lots of interesting work going on in the country. Well, very interesting things are happening. We need to capture that, codify that, write case studies, write books, so that we can launch an education program. So that's one thing we need to have more educational infrastructure. The second issue is that as education, higher education, professional education is increasingly getting privatized. When I studied engineering, and I was actually lucky, I won a national scholarship to go to the favorite MIT and Sloan School. So my education, I come from a village. I spent 17 years of my life in a village. Went to a local vernacular primary school. I used to have a Dalit teacher. So from that, and remote. The nearest bus stop from my place when I was in school was 2 days and 1 night walk away. From there I managed to go to MIT because of support from government. My engineering education was virtually free and my study abroad was totally free. My parents didn't have to spend a penny. Today, all professional education and increasingly higher quality education, the Jindal University, the Naka University, and so on and so forth. The fees are huge. IRMA, which is one of the cheapest management, because it's rural management, you will have to spend 9 lakh rupees over a 2-year period. Having spent 9 lakh rupees, you must have taken a loan. The EMI on that loan will be about 25,000 rupees per month. And if you go to Joe Gramikas, he will say, come and work for 20,000 rupees a month. Public service doesn't pay. And working in villages is public service. Whether you work through an NGO or you work through the government, it is public service. So the second challenge that we face today, where something needs to be done, is to create mechanisms to publicly finance education of those people who will go and work in villages. So we need to build knowledge resources and teaching facilities and programs to teach large numbers of youngsters to go and work in villages, which will require developing new pedagogy and so on and so forth. But we also need mechanisms to finance that education so that the student does not have to spend an arm and a leg and bankrupt his or her parents to get an education and then expected to go and work in a village for a modest salary. It's not as low as it used to be when I started. But even today, if you go and work with, let's say, Pradhan, you might get 30,000 rupees. If your EMI is 25,000, how can you survive on 30,000 rupees? So we need to come up with mechanisms for public financing of education for professionals who want to work in villages. The government can do it, philanthropies can do it, foundations can do it, and now with the emerging CSR, maybe they can also do it. So to conclude, my own belief, over the 25 odd years that I spent here before I retired, it's now 32 years old, when I retired 7 years ago. We had brought in something like, by that time, maybe 1,500, 1,600 youngsters. People with MBAs, people with engineering degrees, agriculture, veterinarian, social work, and then we used to train them for 1 year to go and work in villages. When Vijay and I thought about this, I am kind of the chap who thought about it, and Vijay joined and started it. People used to think that we were mad. In those days, we used to say, just go to us, if we get 10 people to go and work in villages, we'll feel happy every year. Today, Pradhan recruits about 60 people every year, and they can't absorb more. And they are confined only to Hindi-speaking areas. So, my own belief is that there is a large community of young personalities in this country who would be willing, who would be happy, who would be fulfilled if they could get an education that enabled them to go and give a part of their life to the weakest parts of India, to the poorest people of India, to the people in villages. I think I have this strong belief there are lots of personalities who don't get the education, don't get the exposure to go and work in villages. And if you look at our constitution, the constitution in some ways has 4 pillars or 4 goals. Read the constitution, the preamble, before the preamble. One of them is fraternity. Fraternity, which I was referring to in the beginning. The other 3 pillars are justice, liberty, and equality. The idea of fraternity resides naturally in every human being. If you read Adam Smith's 1757 book, not the Wealth of Nations, there is another book he wrote before he wrote the Wealth of Nations, inquiring into the behaviors of human beings or something like that. In that he says, and nobody has to say it, we can see that. If somebody is hurt, we also feel the pain. If somebody is happy, if you see a group of young people, laughing, joking on the road, you will also like a smile. You will not join them, but it will give you a smile. So that idea of fraternity resides in all of us. That is how we have been wired. That's how God has made us. So the challenge today is, if India is to realize its goals of justice, liberty, equality, we've got to ensure that more and more people, like Vasanthi, are able to express this idea of fraternity the way she tried to express it. By choosing to go and work in villages. She didn't have to do that. She could have joined the corporate world, she could have joined any business, so on and so forth. She goes, works in a remote place called Bahuda, in Odisha. Odia speaking people, no connection, no language connection, no cultural connection. no connection about food habits, tribal people in Odisha. So here you are, this young woman, why did she do that? Out of the expression of the idea called fraternity. So if you want to get more and more young people to express the innate sense of fraternity that they have by actually working with the disadvantaged, by working with the poor. We need to address this issue. We need to bring the village to the front. We need to invest in educating such people, both by creating more educational facilities and by creating more, ensuring that they are not able to enhance their education. So I believe the Constitution of India, goals of the Constitution of India will be realized when we do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for a very all-inclusive, comprehensive, and very thought-provoking lecture. You have presented for us the structure of the village, the structure of village in all levels, physical, mental, intellectual, and other planes. We have raised pertinent questions. We have also touched the disparities. And we have mentioned the growth of education. It is true that we have a number of professional and engineering colleges, not only engineering colleges, degree colleges with professional courses, and we do draw in these colleges more than 40 to 50% of rural youth. I know very much that among the students that are sitting here, there will be more than 30 to 40% of people, students coming from village areas. I do agree with you that after completing the education, the products we are sending out from engineering colleges or MBA or BPM courses or even academics and politics syllabus, very little is done to the rural youth. Very little education and knowledge is given to them, which is useful for the development of the rural areas, villages of this country. Though we have the rural youth here, we consider them as a human resource. Yes, this disparity is there. We have raised hope again in the youth minds, what they can do after finishing their education, what the government has to do, what the parliament has to do, and the administration also has to do. And thank you very much. Now we have here very mature students from the final year of MBA, students of PG courses and other degree colleges like Adisha, Ideal and other colleges. I request the audience to come forward with the questions. Now we have about 15 minutes of question answer hour. Please prepare your questions, pose them to Dr. Joshi and he will give you answers. Questions from the students please, and from the non-governmental organizations also, and from the senior lecturers we have from the colleges and PG center. We have here a very senior and an expert engineering college management resource, Mr. Sasarete. I welcome on behalf of the foundation, on behalf of all of us, Sri Sasarete Garu. And Sri Durga Prasad is here, Bhaskar Shastri is here, among the first. Have you any questions, please? silence, please.
Good morning, sir. We are graduate from veterinary science. As you mentioned that disparities are far bigger now when compared to independence. Have you found any solutions to bring down these disparities? If what are they? Thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay. I don't know whether there are solutions for that. I think what is important is that if people who are at the bottom, if they have the opportunity to live a life of dignity, they are not deprived of basic needs. I think they don't mind. You and I don't have the kind of wealth that Mr. Ambani has. Right? We are not going to join the revolution simply because Mr. Ambani has more money than we can count in our lifetime. Right? Why? Because your life and my life gives us reasonable level of a sense of dignity. We have food, we have some basic amenities, we have some freedom that we enjoy. So while the disparities will remain, if the bottom is not so far below, I think things would be okay. And for that there are ways now available. It is, as I was explaining, I can't enumerate everything here, but there is enough work that has been done in this country, especially by NGO community, where people have, a person in a village, a family in a village, have an income of $1 lakh or 2 lakhs a year. If the village is clean, if there is drinking water available to everybody, if there is a decently functioning, Malwari and Vachayu, people are okay. And that I think is within reach today if we go and spend some time. So that's what I'm basically saying. You can't do away with disparity. Disparity will continue to be there. But we can ensure that the weakest is not so weak that he feels or she feels that, I have nothing to lose. I would rather go. I think that's what one takes. You can't do away with disparity, they will remain. Because, see, while we are all equal in many senses, we are also different in many senses. Somebody is a great artist, somebody is great, dignity with numbers, somebody is great prowess with sports and so on and so on. So, differences and disparities will continue in the world. The question is, what is the level at which our weakest are? Today, so while a lot of people have remained where they were more or less, many others have run away. So the gap has increased greatly. So I don't look at, what is the gap? I also look at what is it? Why am I still here? I'm still in the well. Why others are flying? So if I feel that it's okay, I can also get out of the well. I think I don't mind somebody flying. That's the point.
Improving the quality of education by sending several NGOs there. Are you, in terms of modernity, are you trying to create pockets of cities? I hope you understand my question. Are you trying to make villages small, unitary or subaltern kind of cities? Thank you.
City is a very, I am not qualified to comment on it, but since you have provoked me, I am going to put my foot in my mouth. The city is a very peculiar creature. The ancient city consisted of people who were rooted. The traders, various people. Today's city is very different. Today's city is basically a transactional place. You go there because you get a job. Tomorrow you get a job in some other city, you move on. In that sense, so you never get to create a sense of community. Old cities that I have seen them, but certainly my parents' time, we are on the village people, but the city existed there also. So the ancient city was not very different in that sense from the village. People were rooted. Somebody was a trader, somebody was this, somebody was that, but they belong to the city. Today's city is actually average. Village can never be changed. The village will continue to be this habitat of people who are rooted. So in terms of amenities, yes, why not? There is no reason why safe drinking water should be available on the city. It should also be available in the village. In fact, if you ask me, it should be more easily available today. So the land on which the water is captured belongs to them. We actually serve their water. If the city was not allowed to import water from the roads into the land, we would not die of starvation. So why is it that we have access to drinking water, safe drinking water? The village does that. So if you look at it, there is no reason why the school in the village is not as good as the school to which you aspire to send your kids. There is no reason why the village doesn't have access to a psychiatrist, a health person, and so on and so forth, just as you and I. So if you look at it that way, I would like people in villages to have the same access that you and I enjoy as a city. But should it become a space like a city? I hope not. I don't think that village can ever be a transactional place where people come and go simply because they have business to do. In fact, most cities today, in places like Delhi or Bombay, you probably have 25% people who will get on that day. I don't want the village to be like that. Village must be, village is basically a village place, but there's no reason why people cannot cover that. So that's
having a wonderful session today. And in this regard, I would like to share the activities that are taken place in the recent 7-8 years. In 2007, as per the direction of the Brahman Sri Satsai Baba, in Andhra Pradesh, near Maredmilli, in the first place, this organization has taken 25 villages as an adoption. So, as you said, it is touching my heart. The members have gone door to door. They have done the survey. They have taken the data of the requirements and all that. And it was surprised to see in 2008 January, they were not having proper drinking facility. And then after giving this water project and the bringing up of this water, the sustenance of the people in the villages, particularly the male members, before that it was really shocking to know that only 40 years of age upper limit. And then after getting the pure drinking water, this paper, sustenance of the life has increased. And then it is very nice to see that even they were not aware of taking bath in some places. There was no electricity in those some of the villages. And it was hard to see persons not, though they were suffering with medical problems, but still they were very much afraid to come to the hospitals and then taking treatment. So the doctors themselves, they went
and appear in the student place. This session will take only 15 minutes more. You are not expected to leave the grades. Only 15 minutes more.
My question is that, as you said, education, imparting education is one aspect. And after imparting education, whether nobody, particularly the youth, if you look at the recent village which I have visited, is west of the Potepalli village, there is no transportation now almost for 10 kilometers. All the youngsters, some of them are educated, but nobody wants to stay in those villages. So who we are seeing in those villages is only the elder people, above 50s and all that. So under those circumstances, is there any methodology for sustenance of the youth and getting employment or something like that in the national level planning so that the villagers youth, they can stay back and then they can take care of their elders also? That is my question.
Thank you very much. I don't think any recipe for that. I don't think that it's necessary for everybody in the village to get work there as well. The question really is that suppose, I know it will not happen, but suppose sometime in the future, that sometime maybe 50 years from now, there is some statistics that says that in 20 years' time, some of the Indian states will have only half people in the village. Half my people. Not you, half. Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Maharashtra, which I don't believe, Gujarat, and Kerala, of course. It is expected that they will, even after 20 years, they will still have half the people in village. If you ask me about UP or Bihar, maybe even Andhra, I think it will take 15 years for us to reduce the absolute number of people living in village. So, until people come to Bombay or Delhi or even to Kakinada, what do we do? Can we create conditions which they manage? My concern is that we are not drawing on their wisdom, their capability. We expect them to receive. Why can't we create a system where they manage the government, that they manage their budget, they manage their resources, they manage their water supply, they manage their balwari? I mean, it's not possible. So, that is what I am really referring. I am not saying that people, we should provide jobs in the village itself. That is not possible. There will be situations where there is a new category called urban. There is urban, there is rural, and the research people and idea people and professors and what have you, they are very good at words. So they have come up with a new word called urban, R-U-R-B-A-N. Which is rural and urban. So villages which are kind of neither rural nor urban and that continuum between the village and the city is called urban. And we find such urban areas in Gujarat, in Kerala, that is urban, urban is rural. If you go to Tamil Nadu, you find some places which are like that, which basically means that there are people who actually live in villages but going working in nearby towns. Or produce something in the village and go and sell it in the town. So they are actually one road living in the village and one living in the town. So there are many such transitions that India will go through. But in the near future, after human life, with the best of conditions, our average life expectancy today is around 70 plus years. So there will be some people less like some of us are here. Who may live beyond 70, 80 years. Most people don't live that long. So, if that's the long length of time before people in the village are able to become city, what is going to creating small groups, hand-holding, guiding, challenging, questioning, and so on. The health program I was describing earlier about Maharashtra. The community health part of it is managed by the village people themselves. The doctors have no role in it. But the doctors spend time there hand-holding these village workers, health workers, guiding them, spending time with them, till they became capable enough to play that role. So I think that's what I'm really proud about. And that's what somebody like Vasanti would have done with God and God and all the life. That she would have been working among tribal people. To help them manage their own lives, to manage their own drinking water, to manage their own water, to manage their own agriculture, and to be able to deal with you and me as equal human beings. That's the part which is missing today. So to do that, people like you, people like Vasanti need to go and live there and spend time. That's what I have.
A very interesting point also is raised. Urbanization is not curing the ills of the villages. The failures of various systems like health, economy and education is showing disastrous results on the rural areas. We have the systems here, but the systems are not relevant to the villages that we have in India. We do have villages like many other countries have. But scant respect is given to the life of rural people. That's what Dr. Joshi is trying to tell us. So we have to raise our heads, our hearts, and to see that more human resource is created for the development of the rural areas. Development of India, as today the message, is something different from the development of villages of India. Thank you very much for the patient answering of all the questions and the grand lecture he has given as foundation lecture for Vasanti Foundation. Now I request Adharana to please come over and give vote of thanks.
For Kuchipata Vasanti Foundation. Here on the stage, all the persons, all the institutions which Vasanti love are here. On the stage, her father is there. On the stage, her college principal, a motherly figure, Srimati Chirandini Kumari is there. And on the stage, the Irma, which changed the psychological perspective of Vasanti, its chairman, Sri Deep Joshi is there. And moreover that, the real mentor, the real person, the real friend of Vasanti, Joe Gadia is there on the dais. It is completed. On this occasion, for the success of this foundation lecture, I thank Sri Deep Joshi. I rate today's lecture as the most valuable lectures of the 18 lectures delivered here. A national debate regarding the real model of development for India should be started. The policy makers at the national level, the policy makers at the state level, and all the people who invest in the development of real India should change their focus from the urban centers to the rural areas. The real India is still living in villages, that is to whom we have to invest. It is really highly needed to invest in the human resources for rural development. Today's focus should be invest in human resources for rural development. Then only India can really develop to claim for number one position or to claim for a permanent seat in United Nations. Without doing this, if we claim, if we experimental centers, there is no use. So I humbly and fully thank you, our Deep Joshi garu, for starting a very important question. Maybe in Karnataka, most of us never given that importance to the invest in human resources for rural development. India should awaken. India should take this point, invest in human resources for rural development. Today, multinational companies and all other companies very related for the rural market, but they fail to invest in rural areas. So that disparity should be removed, then only India will develop. I humbly thank our Deep Joshi garu for coming all the way with affection and care for our Kuchipatla Vasanthi Foundation. I also thank our Joe garu, who is all the 18 years coming from the Gram Vikas and guiding us in running the programs, and also thank our beloved madam Sri Kumari garu for doing all the things for the success of these programs. I also thank Sri V.S. Rashidhar garu, General Manager of Andhra Bank, for coming to today's meeting. I also particularly thank the college managers. We are kind enough, we are very helpful in running these programs, sending the villages. All the Kuchipatla Vasanthi Foundation programs are for the enlightenment, for the future generations of these Karnataka students. That's why we are bringing so many eminent persons, even remote areas, we are bringing them. So I also thank all the college managers, all the people and media and the Srikara management for giving this opportunity. Thank you very much.
అలా ఫోన్ చేసిరండి దగ్గర బండి పెట్టేస్తుంది